Today I will be talking about the causes of deforestation and the consequences for humans. Have you ever heard the question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, if people keep destroying the planet and demolishing all the trees, then the question will no longer have meaning because all of the forest will be gone. Deforestation is a huge issue that has progressively gotten worse over time as people tear down forest after forest. What causes it? Why do people find it necessary? What is it, and what will happen to the world if it continues this way? Deforestation occurs due to the result of policies focusing on the relationship between the ecosystem and society at a local and global level. People will destroy land for their own personal use, clear land for the use of agriculture and cattle ranching that has great influence on the economy. Urbanization also has influence with the building of roads, markets and housing, and public services such as water and electric grids, and private companies. But people don't realize the long-term damage it will have on the world, not only to the environment, but to humans and society as well. One example of the destruction humans caused can be seen in the Amazon forest. One use for the land is for cattle ranching, as it has increased over the years. It can also be used for agriculture and growing crops such as potatoes, sugarcane, soybeans, corn, wheat, and others. The demand for agriculture products has increased over the years. They have cut down trees to sell timber as there is a high demand for wood and paper products. Although after the destruction, the area is typically left to regrow on its own, or some people do. The decrease in the forest has also led to the loss of diversity in animal species and have increased the amount of carbon emerging into the atmosphere. The different uses of land comes around to being about the economy and making money in the present. People can harvest food and timber to sell to gain resources for the present. Then once the land is in ruins, they move on to better land and leave the previous area for dead. So any benefits that people could say to excuse their behavior for their own economic purposes and leave the problem for future generations to worry about. It also progressively gets worse because the government is barely doing anything to help the situation. Any action to reduce deforestation focuses on cattle ranching and logging, which accounts for under 40% of the total amount of forest destroyed. The consequences for the destruction is a higher release of gases into the atmosphere. Harm to the ecosystem and biodiversity, and overall just lead to the complete ruin of forests that cannot be undone. The amount of gases released into the atmosphere has been increasing over the past several decades. Some gases that would have been removed by the vegetation is now released into the atmosphere because there are no barriers between the gases in the atmosphere. As forests grow and expand, they absorb the carbon from the atmosphere into the soil, leaves, and woods, where they can be stored for a period of time. So when the forest gets destroyed, all that carbon gets released, even if the amount depends on how much of the forest was destroyed. Adding carbon dioxide into the atmosphere is one of the causes of global warming. Another consequence due to deforestation would be the loss of biodiversity and extinction of several species. The biodiversity has a great use for education and scientific use, as well as they provide naturally grown fruits to eat and herbs and other medical uses. Forests can also be used as a watershed, which diverts rainwater to the nearest body of water, such as a river or lake or the ocean, as well as soil protection and help with climate change. Also, deforestation can lead to devastating floods and depletion of water sources. Although there are many benefits to saving the forest and helping the environment, it can lead to flood control, it can increase water supplies, reduce soil erosion, and enhance nutrients provided to help maintain the forest. So the question now is, what can we do to solve the problem and stop it from getting worse? The first step is to recognize that there is a problem and that the source is human influence, mainly due to the increase of the population, as well as the maldistribution of lands and the lack of government action. We need to focus on maintaining the forest that currently exists. Public knowledge of the events, causes, and consequences would bring around the start to solving the problem. The policies and ideas put into place to allow the continuation of deforestation is based on false assumptions. It is based on the ideas that good agriculture leads to high economic growth, when there are other and better ways to do the same things, while it actually contributes to climate change, loss of diversity, flooding, etc., etc. A start to limit deforestation, which would lead to little to no deforestation over time, would be to try to include environmental protection in trade agreements and make it more financially friendly to move to alternate methods to do the same types of productions, but in a safer environment, and even try to limit the use of agriculture, cattle farming, and logging of forests. The government could strengthen the laws and implant more laws that will stop environmental crimes and protect the environment in general, to provide more surveying and monitoring of the forests, as well as develop public support for forest preservation. In the end, humans are the cause of deforestation and therefore need to be part of the solution. The deforestation will only lead in the ruin for not only the environment, but humans as well. We need to stand together to take the first step. It won't be a problem that will be fixed tomorrow or next week, but you have to start somewhere. And hopefully it will lead to a better future for everyone involved.